All right, back again. This time I'm going to take just a little tour and maybe focus in just a little more on some of the cropping systems you see as you drive around our countryside of, again, this northern and western Sauk County on down to Madison. I should say these cropping systems are not necessarily the only cropping system, not even close to the only cropping systems. They're just the ones that are easy to see from the road. So they really aren't some of the more small scale farming. The local food probably, well, some could be local food farming related. There's a few managed grazing operations that I've came across, but it's more looking at how cropping systems have to fit into the landscape and the soil resources that you have, not that it's a total look at all cropping systems. I want to make sure that everybody understands that. In no way implying that this is only cropping systems that are out there. All right, take a little tour again, starting with our soil sign. In this case, looking at this particular farm of continuous pasture managed grazing is what they're practicing on this part of it, and you start to see some hay fields and some of the other cropping, probably corn and soybeans that would be, I guess, from a distance. Pretty sure that's what they are. That's what they look like out there. But the continuous cropping, continuous pasture on this hillside, it's a management choice that the farmers made to go ahead and do that. Again, we looked at this one before back in the Baraboo Bluffs. You're left with not much area that's actually farmable, but this person's trying to manage probably about 2 acres or maybe 3 acres of hops on the poles here. Maybe you can do pretty good with that and make a little bit of a living off of your farm, your little land there in the Baraboo Hills. Again, we're looking at some you can see the cattle out here. This is continuous pastured land, and this particular farm or this kind of landscape, maybe they do well to switch up and try to do a managed grazing and have a healthier pasture. You start to see some of the erosion that happens and things on that long-term managed pasture. We'll get more into that in the management implications. Again, these rolling hills, contour stripping, contour farming is going to be the norm when you get into the steep-sided slopes of the western part of the state. In this rotation, they have their corn and hay, and then corn again there, and soybeans here on the outside. Having these shorter strips and following the contour, that's a big part of contour farming. Allows or protects and reduces the possibility of erosion during the bare soil areas or times of the year. Another look at contour farming on this part of the steep hillsides in western Sauk County. Again, you see how they work along the edge of the contour. The idea is to break up the slope. The length of the slope, is, I'm sure you'll recall, is one of the issues related to erosion. A little different look at strip farming here. They have different hay practices that are going down, different cropping systems in between, but they still are, rather than going up and down the slopes, which was an older practice, but done quite regularly, following the length of the contour will help break that up. And in this case, where these gullies had formed over years of cropping, they put in grass waterways as a means to start to protect that. So they'd have to farm around that as in their farming system, in their cropping system. Another look at how the contour farming fits into the landscape in much of the western part of the state. As you get into some of the bigger rolling hills, you still need to break up the length of slope, so having these fields not quite be the whole length of the slope this way. Having a soybean and then the hayfield up here on top or this is actually a cover crop up here on top. So that farm is splitting out and changing the cropping rotation as it to help prevent erosion a little bit with that. As you get into the flatter, you get much bigger fields, and of course, depending on where you're at, you may need the irrigation system to help with the cropping system. This is actually seed corn, I think I mentioned in the last one, so it's a high value corn crop that the farmer can afford and doesn't take the risk on weather, although this year you didn't need to run it much because we had plenty of rain throughout the growing season. But they are, again, that the cropping system that he has in place allows this land to be managed the way it is. And I'll back to it for some management. I mentioned managed grazing and as another possible way of managing the land. This is outside of Reedsburg. The paddocks here go in this direction, and this farmer splits it down the way as the cattle move through. It doesn't look particularly great here at the end of the growing season, but these fields happen to have been in pasture for pretty much the length of time that the guy's been farming it for the last 40 or so years, for sure, and some of them even longer than that. Long-term pasture here. You do see some of the problems that you can still get. This is where their lane comes in for the cattle to go back to the barn system. And the congregation area here does knock down some of the paddocks. We'll get into that deeper maybe in management. Another example of managed grazing farms on hillsides in Sauk County. This one being an organic dairy. The little bit of slope that they have in this direction is protected by continually having a multi-species pasture out there. Keeps the water from flowing through. One of the principles of cover cropping, of course, is you keep the ground covered. This is actually millet. Interesting, pretty weedy millet field, but different crop that you don't typically see in rotations, but that's what they have going on there. This is cover cropping at the Sauk County farm. It's a multi-species cover crop that, in this particular case, following their winter wheat that was taken off in the summer and then planted and got a nice growth of oats. And this one has oats and peas and radishes mixed in with some other grasses. You can see the radishes here and the old leaves here. So different. It might be the peas and clover that are part of that as well. But they all serve a different, slightly different purpose in the mix, and you will get good ground cover, good control of erosion. Another crop that had you can see the amount of rain here that we've had is pretty muddy, but this cover crop is definitely doing a good job of helping keep erosion under control in this field that was winter wheat that was harvested earlier in the summer as well. Getting into more of the flat grounds, you can get some bigger fields and you start to see larger cropping rotations going on, with this one being the soybean and then the cover crop again out of the wheat in this corn, soybean, wheat rotation of the grain farming in Wisconsin, southern Wisconsin. Another look at some of that opportunity. Cropping systems change as you get into different farming types, of course, and this is getting to be the western part of Dane County. You have a fair amount of relatively decent-sized dairy operations. This guy, you can see their freestall up here on the ridge, and then of course you get into the cropping rotations of the alfalfa, corn silage, and soybeans, and corn grain that go along with that. Here's a look at their silage fields. But in that western Dane County and these big open valleys that are part of western Dane County, some pretty large fields that you could manage for your systems. As you keep moving towards Madison, you get into the Waunakee area and you start to get to the big prairie former prairie fields that are out there, and they're just gigantic alfalfa fields, huge amounts of alfalfa that you can get out here in that one, and of course the rest of the dairy rotation with the silage corn. Looks like soybeans you can see up on the hillside there. Much larger fields to help grow the feeds for the dairies in that part of western Wisconsin and Waunakee area. Okay. Well, we are, again, just trying to give you some background on what it was that we were working on in class here. Yeah, just trying to give a little bit of sense, visual sense to some of the things that we've been talking about, or you've been reading about, I guess, and working through in the soils class so far. Again, as you're driving around the countryside now, maybe take a look at that and think about how does those cropping systems fit into the landscape? Why are they there? That was fun. Just about tipped over in my chair there. Why are those systems there? How is the soil impacting what kind of farming is going on? If you're still looking for your dream farm, use this as an opportunity to really hone in on what you're looking for and needs as far as your farm is going to be, and you can get a better sense of what's out there as far as some resources. Okay, we'll see you in the next video.